Well, by now, you've probably heard about the so-called Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Should we be concerned about it? Or is this media-driven hysteria that just needs to end already? Well, yesterday, I spoke with Dr. Omar Hamada about the new variant. He's a frontline ER doctor, a former Special Forces flight surgeon, and an OB-GYN doctor. Not mine, by the way, just to throw that in. So he has plenty of expert insights to speak into those questions and a whole lot more. Here's my conversation with Dr. Hamada. Dr. Hamada, welcome back. I got to tell you, when you were with us before, everybody said, you know, he makes a lot of sense. And when a doctor makes sense, we want him on our show.
Well, fantastic.
We have heard, the World Health Organization has even said that not a single person in the world has died from the Omicron variant. Why is everybody freaking out about it?
You know, that's a great question, Governor. We are making such a big deal over this, and there's so much fear being generated because, frankly, I think people just say we don't know. But if we look at the South African experience and listen to what the doctors there are saying, this seems to be a variant, they call it a VOC, a variant of concern, like Delta, that quickly replaced Delta within 2 weeks or so in South Africa. But what we're seeing is it is more infectious, it's more transmissible, but with much less severity of disease. So this could potentially be the end of the coronavirus pandemic.
Because it would be that we're getting to herd immunity?
Yeah, exactly. Because if it's so transmissible and people get infected, but with nothing more than a mild cold for most everybody, then people could develop natural immunity, and then it's over.
Dr. Fauci will be crushed if
will.
it's over. And I say that somewhat facetiously, but I'm beginning to believe that there's some people in the public health community that want to keep us locked down and afraid. And I'm thinking, you know, there comes a point at which we've got to get back to living. There's certain risk, we all understand it, a risk not taking the vaccine, maybe for some people a risk in taking it. But the bigger risk is that we curl up in a fetal position, hide under our beds, and stop living.
Exactly. And the damage that this pandemic has done to the world is irreversible, I think. And it seems like they want to keep continuing the fear-based insanity, locking people down and everything else. So, and I understand there has to be some caution. When it first started, we just didn't know what we didn't know, and there was a lot of fear, justifiably so. But as we gained experience and as people got immunized and as people developed other medications that could treat it or discovered other medicines like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, I know there's a lot of controversy about that, then we began to see that, you know, we can actually survive this. I mean, in the US, for example, the fatality rate's about 1%, not greater than that.
So you mentioned ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. There have been other things that doctors have prescribed, and they get in trouble for it. Sometimes they're threatened with the loss of their medical license. Shouldn't we allow doctors and their patients to make these decisions and not some bureaucrat who's never walked the hall of a hospital?
We certainly should. And this is the first time in modern history where physicians have had their hands tied and are told we cannot use certain medications off-label to treat clinical conditions. We do it all the time. We do it in obstetrics and gynecology. We do it in internal medicine. We do it in emergency medicine. There are many medications we use off-label. This is the first time where we're not only being told we can't, we're being threatened, we're being fired, we're being delicensed. So it doesn't make any sense.
And I've seen people, they're not political doctors, they're genuine immunologists and others who are maybe from the academic world, but the ones that see patients, some of whom are in academia, but they also see patients, they walk the halls of a hospital, they look at patient charts. They've had a very different approach to this, very different than what I call the bureaucratic physicians who maybe have not seen a patient in decades, do not have a clinical practice. A lot of Americans say, who do I listen to?
Exactly, it's confusing. And unfortunately, there is so much variance in information. And unfortunately, and this seems to hold pretty true, there seems to be a dividing line based on political, the way somebody leans politically, which is interesting because it should just be pure science.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the science, this is what happens, and these are the decisions we make. But it seems to be swayed based on which way we lean politically too, which is difficult to understand. It makes us think that maybe there is some sort of agenda, maybe there is something else to this rather than just a straight pandemic.
One question that I have not been able to get someone to help me better understand, the government is pushing vaccination. I don't have a problem with that. As I've told people, I got the vaccine because at my age and with having had pneumonia and stuff, made sense for me, but maybe not for everybody. And I don't care if someone doesn't get it. But what I don't understand, what about the people who have had COVID, who have natural antibodies, and most of these policies that are being put out there, they don't allow that person is probably better protected than I am. And shouldn't a person keep his or her job? Shouldn't they still be able to drive a truck or be a police officer if they've had COVID and have natural antibodies without getting the vaccine?
Certainly, and that's one of the things that actually makes me think there's something more to this than just straight science. So now you're going to get the nerd to come out in me because I love this stuff, right? So in the virus, there are 16 non-structural proteins that are coded by the genome. And there are only 4 structural proteins, and those are the S protein, the membrane protein, envelope protein, and what we call the nucleocapsid protein, where the RNA is stored. So the immunizations are only made against that one S protein, but all those other antigenic indicators of the virus are not addressed by the vaccine. Natural immunity takes them all. So natural immunity is going to build a more robust, a more effective, and a wider immunity against coronavirus and enable us to actually interact even more against the variant.
So I think some people in our audience, they're looking to see who's got the virus here in the audience. They're going to go hug them and give them a big wet kiss so they can get it and be done with it. Kidding, of course, but that's what I don't understand. We shouldn't eliminate jobs for people or anything if people have now had natural immunity. That's great, and I'm happy for them. I don't want to get COVID to have it. I'd rather just not get it at all. But I'm not hearing any government official who's saying either a vaccine or natural immunity, or just take care of yourself. It's your choice. You have one of 3 choices to make. Wouldn't that be the way that America ought to do this?
Sure, certainly would.
Well, I just want to say thank you. It's always great having you here. You make very complicated things understandable.
Thank you.
Even to people like me and Keith and Trey. And if we get it, the world gets it. I can assure you that. Thank you so much, Dr. Hamada. My thanks to Dr. Hamada for joining me and answering all of our questions. By the way, you can keep up with Dr. Hamada and get all his takes on the latest medical news by going to the all-new Huckabee.tv website.